My name is Philip Miller, and I'm talking today about the gaming console, OrangePi Neo, which is based on Linux. So let's go back to history lane. The first gaming console, which is not by Nintendo, was the Aoyai. So it came out 2013, and it had Android on it. So it was the first console where people had the opportunity to work and do their own games, but it failed. So they had only 2,000 units sold and only 1,250 games supported. In 2020, someone said, hey, why not put Linux on it? Because it's a dead hardware. So yeah. The next was by Valve, the Steam machines. So what they had, also Linux. They had around 500,000 sold, but the games were less, only 1,000. So Valve had to rethink. And a couple years later, the Steam Deck came out. So 2021, they had a lot of games, still 1,000 in the beginning, but the form factor was different. And so far, they sold around 3 million units. After that, 2023, the Steam Deck OLED came out. And what changed? Well, the first batch was sold out, so it was a hit for them. And the games are now at 13,981 games, which you can play on this mobile device. So we come along in 2024 with the OrangePi Neo. We are intending to do the initial batch of 50K, and then on demand we produce more. And we have around 14,000 games which you can play on this device. So how we port Linux to it? Yeah, there is always a question, which came first? The hen, the egg, or the chicken? So to do that, we have to port Linux to the device, of course. Then, if the device is not produced yet, we need another device to replace that. So, I was looking to something, and you need developers which are doing the same goals. So, what was on the market? On the electronic shelves, there was this Asus ROG Ally. So when I was back in Munich, Germany, I went to the nearest media market and bought that device to start porting my operating system, which is Manjaro. So what was the hardware of this device? So it's similar to my device. It has the AMD Ryzen Z1 Extreme, the same graphics card, a similar screen, 16 GB RAM, 512 watt hard drive, and Dolby Atmos. So there were a lot of problems which will come with this hardware design. Then we have Windows 11, my Asus, and a lot of drivers for Windows. So what didn't work? Part of the controllers works, but not every button. So this was a problem. Then graphic works, that's great. Screen works. What didn't work was sound. So you couldn't play any games with sound. So this was a challenge. We had to support the gyro. We had to support also the sound card and some buttons, of course. And Windows. If you have Windows, you have updates. So if you start the Asus Ally, first was you greeted with a Windows setup. You have to create an online account. You have to do updates. And then you have updates of the drivers and updates of the launcher. So you stand there, you want to play a game, and it took you about 1.5 hours to start the game, because you only have to download the game. So, yeah. And if you look here at two different models, what's the difference? The UI. Every manufacturer changes the UI, so you don't have the same user interface. And how we change that? Well, we put Linux on it. So we have Manjaro, we have KD Plasma as the UI for the desktop. We have some parts of Chimera OS, which is a gaming operating system, and a bunch of other things, including Steam, ButterFS, and other launchers. And with this, we can start and have the same UI as we want to have it. So the first, what we have to do, testing on the device. Is your operating system working? The second is give the vendor the feedback, what they have to change, and also do testing and feedback with the vendor, so everything is working. What worked? So on my device worked part of the controllers, which is good. Graphics works, screen worked, audio worked. So we had one more point which is actually working than on the Asus Ally. And the touchpads worked as well. So we only had to work on suspend, the 4 buttons which were not working by the default drivers, and the gyro. So how we did that? We did first the basic functionality, so the operating system worked. Then we fixed the issues in firmware and hardware. So there was a lot of devices coming to my desk and I have to change, hey, this button didn't work, you have to change that in the firmware. And the last thing was, we have to polish the experience. So this is what we're doing now. What is important? Well, the power management, of course, you want to have a long battery life. The cooling is also something which you have to work on. RGB, some people like RGB to have some fancy coloring around. The controller, there are a lot of input devices. X input is the standard which everybody wants to use, so we aim for that. The gyro was also something which people like to use, so you can turn the device upside down and the game will react, or you have a flight simulator, you can do some turns. And what also is clear, the build quality. You want to have a good device, so all the buttons should be working and so on. And you have to stay curious to adopt changes. So this is mainly what you do for porting the device. So are there any questions regarding the device itself?